This is the other side. Reverse this on the other side. Oh, okay. You're right. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Gopi Janavallabha Girivardhari Jasodanandana Brajajana Rajana Jasodanandana Brajajana Rajana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Rama Rama Kunja Bihari Jaya Rama Rama Kunja Bihari Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you all for coming. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, today we'll be reading from the 10th canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, chapter 40, verses 21 and 22, if I'm correct. But what's on the board? Okay. Namaste. What's on the board? Okay, let's see. Namaste. Okay, I see the first line. Okay, here. So we'll be reading from verse 21, and then we'll read from 22, and no purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Ki Jai, or his disciples, Ki Jai. Namaste Vasudevaya. Nama Sankirtanaya Cha. Pradumnaya Anirudhyaya. Sattvatam Pataye Namaha. Namaste Vasudevaya. Nama Sankirtanaya Cha. Pradumna Anirudaya. Sattvatam Pataya Namaha. Namaste Vasudevaya. Nama Sankirtanaya Cha. Pradumnaya Anuradaya. Sattvatam Pataye Namaha. Namaste Vasudevaya. Namaste Vasudevaya. Nama Sankirtanaya Cha. Okay, we'll be reading from 22. Also, Namo Buddhaya Shuddhaya Datya Danava Mohine. You don't have to read it. Leche Prayak Shatra Hantre Namaste Kalki Rupine. So I'll read both verses together, the English translation. Obeisances to you, Lord of the Sattvatas, and to your forms of Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. That was text 21, so text 22. Obeisances to your form as the faultless Lord Buddha, who will bewilder the Daitas and Danavas, and to Lord Kalki, the annihilator of the meat-eaters, posing as kings. Amagyan samanandasya gyananjana shalakaya shakshumiletam nena tasmai shri guruve namaha. Shri Chaitanya manobishtam stapitanyena bhutale swayam rupa kadamayam dadati swapadantikam. Vancha kalpaturubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavinebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhattacharya Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, we'll be reading the translation one more time from the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 40, verses 21 and 22. Obeisances to you, Lord of the Sattvatas, and to your forms of Vasudeva, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. Obeisances to your form as the faultless Lord Buddha, who would bewilder the Daitas and Danavas, and to Lord Kalki, the annihilator of the meat-eaters posing as kings. Thank you all for coming. First, before I begin class, I would like to offer my gratitude to all the devotees here, the senior devotees and all the devotees in general, and all those who gave me so much love and affection over the years. There's too many people to remember, but first I'd like to offer my gratitude to, first and foremost, my mother and my brother, His Grace Jaya Jagannath, Prabhu. And there's many devotees to thank, but, one Prabhupada disciple, the first Prabhupada disciple I ever met when I came to the temple was His Grace Shankar Pandit Prabhu. And I just saw him last night, so I would definitely like to offer my gratitude to him because, he's always encouraged me to learn the verses and his other instructions. So thank you to him. So anyway, this verse describes, it mentions the word Namaha at least 3 or 4 times, these 2 verses. And so we see that in the material world, generally, when do people offer respects to others? When they have more power than us. When do we offer the most disrespect to others? When people have less power than us. So in this verse, it's offering respects, namaha, to the Supreme Lord in his expansions or incarnations. So obviously, it doesn't take much humility to offer respect to somebody that has much power, more power than you. And we also see that Krishna, he covers both the devotees and the demons by Yoga Maya in his pastimes. Why? Because suppose his devotees knew that baby Krishna was the Supreme Lord. What will happen? People will say, you better not mess with that baby, If you don't feed him his milk, he'll mess you up. So this is precisely why Lord Krishna covers his devotees by Yoga Maya, because it interferes with that loving exchange. If they know he's the Supreme Lord, then that means they'll probably be serving him out of fear. Same with the demons. It's described that Krishna has, just as we have the fighting propensity, and obviously, if you've been watching Srimad-Bhagavatam over the years, I have the fighting propensity. And so it's described that if the demons knew that Krishna was the Supreme Lord, then they wouldn't put their heart and soul into fighting him, because it's like, what's the point? And so we see in this way that Lord Krishna covers his devotees and the demons by Yoga Maya, so that he can enact his pastimes, and so that the devotees and demons can enact their pastimes, interact with the Lord with their heart and devotion, whether you love the Lord or whether you hate the Lord. And so, so in this way, this is, as previously mentioned, that this could be an obstacle to our devotion to the Supreme Lord when devotees, if they're aware that he's the Supreme Lord. As far as Mahamaya is concerned, we see in the material world that we're all covered by Mahamaya. And that means, generally speaking, as previously, that we offer respect to people who have more power than us. If you have Jama Aishwarya Shuta Shri Bir, if you come from a very powerful family, like the British royal family, Jama Aishwarya, if you have money, if you have Shruta, high education, and if you have Shri, beauty, generally speaking, you get the respect, but obviously we know that's not the respect. And so there's a nice quote. It says, "Men make counterfeit money. In many more cases, money makes counterfeit man." And so we see that this is the nature of our relationships in this world. And so even Lord Buddha, he's one of my favorite avatars, because my mother, She gave me a book by Buddha called the Dhammapad. And I actually tried to give it to Acharya Nishta probably many years ago, if you remember. The book by Buddha, purple one? No, you don't remember? But I'm glad I kept it because it has some very powerful quotes in it. And Lord Buddha, in verse 262 and 263 of his Dhammapad, he says, an envious, greedy, and dishonest man does not become respectable by means of much talking only, or by the beauty of his complexion. He who is free from envy, greed, and dishonesty, and who is free from hatred and becomes wise, that person is respectable. So there's a nice story in this regard. Thank you for coming, Ruchi Matsuji. Once upon a time, a mother wanted to teach her 8-year-old son, Michael, a lesson on gratitude. Why? Because all throughout Michael's life, he was always grateful for some gifts and ungrateful for others. When he received a video game, he was so happy, woo! When he received a book, the Srimad-Bhagavatam, he threw it away in disgust, yuck. So the next year for Michael's 9th birthday, the mother tried something very different. She surprisingly bought her son more presents than ever, approximately 100. So when Michael saw so many presents, it was the happiest he ever been in his life. So he opened the first present, and he looked inside, and he was shocked. He opened the second present. He looked inside, and he was shocked. Michael sat there and opened all 100 presents. And do you know why he was shocked? I mean, if you know me, I probably explained this story to the congregation devotees a million times. Does anybody remember? Why was Michael shocked after opening every present? All books? Who else? Yes. Well, actually, it doesn't matter whether their books are empty. It's the same for Michael. But yes, they were all empty. So the moral of the story is, just as we're all naturally attracted to a gift wrap package and repelled by it when we find out there's nothing inside, in much the same way, we're all naturally attracted to people who are gift wrapped in riches, fame, beauty, and high education, but repelled by them when we find out there's nothing inside. Unless we give ourselves the gift of humility, appreciation, forgiveness, and gratitude, then we'll always remain empty with pride, envy, vengeance, and attitude. So we can see that even when a supermodel, one of the most beautiful women in the world, whoever it is, a supermodel, when she turns 30, she's considered a senior citizen in Hollywood terms. And so, but we can examine that why are all these great saints and sages and yogis and swamis and babas, why are they so attractive even throughout their whole life, even in their old age? Let's say like Srila Prabhupada. Generally speaking, when somebody becomes an old man, not even your kids want to associate with you anymore. But what we can learn from Srila Prabhupada and all these great saints throughout history, why are they even surrounded by so many people even in their old age? Because Srila Prabhupada and all these great saints, they're less concerned about being a model and more concerned about being a role model. So we see that in this world, materialism brings people together, but spiritualism potentially keeps people together. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarve gunais tatra samate suraha. This verse I've quoted last week, and it's a verse that Prabhupada often quoted from the 5th canto, chapter 18, verse 12. It says, without good qualities, sarva gunais, without all the good qualities, we see two beautiful people come together, two rich people come together, two highly educated people together, in probably less than 6 months. You're lucky if you make it to a year. There's separation. Why? Because you don't have Bhagavati Bhakti, you don't have good qualities. And what does good quality means? That means you have to control your senses. And so we see, in this material world, people can't stay together without these good qualities and without being sense control. Of course, we all have our you could say anarthas, our lapses. But still, at least we're striving for it. At least we have some theoretical knowledge that we could strive for. Without theoretical knowledge, it's just all drama. And so there's a nice quote. It says, educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. And so we see that politicians, they ascend to power. Why? They have the education on the outside, but why are they removed from power? They have no ethics on the inside. And so we could see that, therefore, Lord Chaitanya says, or in the Chaitanya Charitamrita it says, Orva Bahukari Kohashuna Sarva Loka. Nama Sutre Ganti Pada Kante A Shloka. It says, this is from CC Adi, chapter 17, verse 31 and 32. It says, in order to have proper relationships, then one should string this verse, like Mother Rohini, she strings the garlands on the string. It says one should string this verse around the thread of the holy name and wear it around your neck for continuous remembrance. And what is that verse? Trinada pisuni chena todor iva sahishnuna amani namanandena kirtaniya sadahari. Lord Chaitanya's famous verse of one should be more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, and ready to offer all respect to others without expecting respect in return. In this way, one can always engage in spiritualism. In the material world, it's the complete opposite. What do they do in the material world? Even though not in words, but in actions, what do? One's disposition should be more prouder than a politician, more intolerant than a child, and ready to offer all disrespect to others while always expecting respect in return. In this way, one can always engage in materialism. And so we see this is the nature. And so we could examine a few pastimes in this regard where the tendency is to offer respect to people who have more power than us and to disregard those who have less power than us. So there's the famous story in the Ramayana. And this is very important in regards to going outside your comfort zone, because for me, this is not my forte, public speaking, but the main thing is that we have to try our best. And so an example of offering respect to the Supreme Lord, but not his devotee, Archayam eva haraye pujam yashadaye hate nata bateshu chanyeshu sabata prakriti shmitaha. This verse from the Bhagavatam says, if we offer worship to the deity, to the Guru, or to the Supreme Lord, but do not show proper respect to devotees or people in general, then we're considered a materialistic devotee. So even great devotees in the scriptures, sometimes they succumb to this neophyte mentality like Hanuman. So in the Ramayana, it's described the famous story where Hanuman was helping Lord Rama build a bridge from India to Sri Lanka. And of course, the Lord empowered him with superhuman strength. And so in this way, Hanuman, he could lift huge mountains, huge boulders, etc., and easily throw them in the sea. And because the Vanaras, the monkey clan, they wrote the name of Lord Rama on the stones floated. So in this way, Lord Hanuman is glorified because of his strength. But at the same time, the Lord humbled him. Why did he humble Hanuman? Because he disrespected somebody who had less power than him, and that was a squirrel. So it's described that this squirrel, sometimes it's said that it's a spider, but some devotees said that the real pastime is with the squirrel. I'm not sure whether you use a squirrel or a spider. So it's described that this squirrel, he also wanted to help Lord Rama build this bridge to Lanka. So obviously, what is the strength of a squirrel? Not that much. So this squirrel was lifting only dust and small pebbles. And Hanuman, he criticized the squirrel. He says, "My dear squirrel," that's almost like having a father, like my grandfather was a construction worker. And that's almost like having a baby trying to do the construction work as well. In the material world, it's considered very dangerous, but we shouldn't apply our material consciousness to spiritual consciousness, and this is precisely what Hanuman did. In the material world, so he criticized the squirrel because the squirrel apparently from an external point of view was wasting his time, just like a baby who tries to help his father build a construction building is wasting his time and also putting himself in a lot of danger. But this is not the case when we're just talking about spiritual communities and spiritual consciousness. So anyways, the Lord criticized Hanuman. He says, "My dear Hanuman, without my Krishna Shakti, without my Ram Shakti, without my empowerment, you cannot even lift a small grain of sand." And if the squirrel is given my Shakti, then he can lift huge boulders. So therefore, this is a very important lesson for us, because we could see that sometimes when we're in a community of devotees, sometimes other devotees may minimize our bhakti if we're not externally good at it. And this is precisely what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wanted to guard his devotees against. It's often said that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta will have sometimes a terrible singer sing kirtan. Why? Just so we won't become so attached and so externally oriented to devotees who could do so many things well, and then we disrespect other devotees. So in this way, this is one pastime. This is also a very important pastime in regarding preaching Krishna consciousness, because it says, Bharta Bhumi Te Hoila Manusha Jamayar Jama Sataka Kari Kara Para Upakar. In this verse on the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says that if one is born in India, but any human being, it is the duty of every human being to preach the glories of the Lord. Now, there are many reasons why we refuse to preach the glories of the Lord. A few reasons. One is that, and I can relate to them. One is that some people may say, I'm not pure enough. That's one reason why we don't preach the glories of the Lord. One is I'm introverted. And the other is I don't have great knowledge of the scriptures. So why should I preach the glories of the Lord? And if somebody else could preach the glories of the Lord better than me, then why don't I allow them to do that and I do my dharma? Now, my argument against that is that because we should be very thoughtful of in this regard, because the tendency is that since we're under the material modes of nature, that means we like to we have our pride, we have our envy, we have our vengeance, etc. So when we want to find fault with somebody, what happens? We're pure enough, we're eloquent enough, and we have the knowledge of the whole situation. And we could give a whole Srimad-Bhagavatam class about somebody's faults. But we could see that, practically speaking, that I've never seen anybody happy who describes the faults of others. So if we're inspired by Maya to share the faults of others, then we should also take the opportunity to go outside our comfort zone, just like this squirrel. Because some people may think, oh yes, this squirrel. Hanuman may think, yes, this squirrel, he cannot do this construction job as good as me, so therefore this is not his dharma. But no, in the Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it says that we're all meant to speak the glories of the Lord. Otherwise, what we're going to speak about, it doesn't have to be in the Srimad-Bhagavatam class, but find somebody, some program to preach to. And so in this way, this is the whole point, that just because you're not good at something, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Let's say you're not good at cooking. You're not good at cooking. Does that mean you should not do it? If you don't cook, then what happens? You're going to die. Similarly, if you don't use your tongue to preach to the glories of the Lord, to feed your mind with this wisdom and to feed others, then what happens? You'll spiritually die. So just because you're not good at something, that doesn't mean that's not your dharma. It's everyone's dharma to glorify the Lord. Otherwise, what happens? You glorify Maya, you criticize others. So in this way, this is an example of how Hanuman could fall into the Maya by disrespecting people who has less power than him. And so, now, I would like to share two contrasting stories in this regard, especially to trying your best. So in the Gita, chapter 15, Krishna said, Sarvasha cham ham hridi sani vishto mata shmita jnanam upahanam cha. So what does that mean? Krishna says, from me comes all knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. And so when does Krishna reveal knowledge? When we try our best. When does Krishna conceal knowledge? When we try to be the best. And so we can see this theme appears throughout the Srimad-Bhagavatam. And what is that thing? If we try our best, then God will help us. If we try to be the best, then God will humble us. And so I would like to share two contrasting stories in this regard. The story of Dhruva Maharaj and that of Keshava Kashmiri. Dhruva Maharaj tried his best, so the Lord helped them. Keshava Kashmiri tried to be the best, so the Lord humbled them. So long story as far as the Dhruva Maharaj pastime is concerned. Once upon a time, there was a boy named Dhruva Maharaj. His father was a king. And Dhruva Maharaj had a biological mother and a stepmother. So it's described that Dhruva Maharaj's stepmother was considered the superior wife, and his biological mother was considered the inferior wife. So one day, Dhruva Maharaj, he wanted to sit on the lap of his father while his father was sitting on the throne. And so then the stepmother, she criticized Dhruva Maharaj. She says, my dear Dhruva Maharaj, You will never become the king because you do not come from my womb. I am the most beautiful wife, the younger wife, and the most superior wife. So you will never be the king. My own son will be the king. So please get off the lap of your father. So Dhruva, he was looking to his father for for his father to defend him, but probably his father was enamored by Jama, Aishwarya, Shruta, Shribir. He was enamored by the beauty of a superior wife that he did not even defend his son. So his son, Dhruva Maharaj, he climbed off the lap of his father, and he went to his mother crying. And so his mother consoled him. And she says, my dear Dhruva Maharaj, when things do not go our way, when persons, places, things do not go our way, then we have to sincerely try to connect to the Lord. Now, why is a computer attractive? Because it's connected to its power source. If it was disconnected from its power source, it's unattractive. So Dhruva's mother, she says, my dear Dhruva, please try to connect to Krishna, the all-attractive one. And what's the result of connecting to Krishna? Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavatiya kinchana sarva gunais tatra samasate suraha. You develop all good qualities like forgiveness. And these qualities make a person attractive. The opposite of those are bad qualities. Bad qualities, just like Dhruva, he wasn't attracted to his stepmother. Why? Because she was disconnected from Krishna. She was criticizing him from her pride, the pride that comes from her beauty. So therefore in the Gita, Krishna also says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajate mam buddha bhava samavitaha. Krishna says, I am the power source of everything. And those who are Buddha, this verse actually mentions Buddha. Those who are Buddha bhava samavitaha, those who are truly enlightened, wise, they connect to me. So in this way, Dhruva followed the instructions of his mother. So the mother says, go to the forest and try to connect to Krishna. Meditate and try to connect to the Lord of your heart. Ishwara sarva bhutanam hridesha arjuna tishati. Because the Lord is situated within our heart, anyone can connect to him from anywhere. You don't need to know the Wi-Fi code. The Lord is already situated in your heart. You can connect to him from anywhere and everywhere. So in this way, Dhruva meditated on the Supreme Lord. And because the Lord is situated within our heart and he could see whether we're sincere or not, the Lord sent them a guru, and that guru name was Narada Muni. So in this way, Narada Muni gave instructions to the Lord to further connect to the Lord. So when Dhruva mastered his meditation, his connection to the Lord, the Supreme Lord actually appeared before Dhruva Maharaj. And so, long story short, to get to the point of this particular topic, it's described that the Lord told, in the final analysis, he told the Lord says, my dear Dhruva Maharaj, please offer prayers of love and devotion to me and try your best. So Dhruva Maharaj, he says, my dear Supreme Lord, I'm only a 5-year-old boy. What do I know? How can I offer prayers of love and devotion to you? I only went to kindergarten. So what can I do? So the Lord just says, my dear Dhruva, just try your best. And so it's described that when Dhruva began to speak prayers of love and devotion by trying his best, the Lord took his transcendental, enchanted conch shell and he touched it to the head of Dhruva Maharaj. And in this way, because of this connection to the Lord inspired him with so much wisdom. Just like when you connect to Google, you get so much wisdom. You could find wisdom on anything. So in this way, the Lord inspired his heart with so much love and devotion and poetry and prayers of devotion that when he began to speak, it was as if he was a seasoned scholar, a seasoned poet. So this is a very important how the Lord puts knowledge within our hearts. So there's a nice Christian story in this regard. So once upon a time, a pastor told a man in his congregation, he says, my dear sir, can you please put a $100 bill in your wife's Bible without her knowledge? So then the man said, sure, pastor, of course I will. So during that Sunday sermon, the pastor asked this lady, he asked her to stand up, and he says, my dear lady, can you open your Bible and give me a $100 bill? So she says, pastor, I do not have a $100 bill in my Bible. So the pastor says, do you trust me? So she says, Of course, Pastor, of course I trust you, but trust me, I do not have a $100 bill in my Bible. So then the pastor insisted. So in frustration, the lady opened her Bible, and there it was, on $100 bills. So she said, how did that get in there? So the pastor said, I put it in there. The moral of the story is, God will never ask you for something without first putting it in you. Tesham satatam yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhiyogam samyenam alpayantite tesham evanu kampawatam mahamagyanjam tamaha nashayami amabhavasto gyandipena basvata. This is a Chatur Shloki, one of the Chatur Shlokis, 4 principal verses of the Gita from chapter 10, verse 10 through 11. It says, Krishna says, to those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love or connected to me in love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in the hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born in ignorance. And this is precisely what happened to Dhruva Maharaj. Because he simply tried to connect to the Lord to the best of his ability, the Lord gave him the light of knowledge by which it dispelled his darkness. And so as far as this light of knowledge is concerned, we chant in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, the prayers, the opening prayers, I offer my Namaha. So this is the theme of this class, Namaha, respects. I offer my respects, my obeisances to my gurus, all of my gurus, not just my Diksha guru, but all my Shiksha gurus, all my mentors, my father, my mother. So that's the problem. We generally only offer our respects to our Diksha guru, but there's so many people who's contributed to our Krishna consciousness. So I offer my respects to all my gurus, all my mentors. Even in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, it's described that in Avadut, he took 24 Shiksha gurus, and among those gurus, a prostitute. So if this is the humility of great Vaishnavas, they could say, I could learn so much even from a prostitute, some profound lessons. So this is the type of humility we should develop. Not that, devotees are chanting, doing their best to chant, follow the 4 regular principles, and yet we say, are you a pure devotee or not? What difference does it make? So this is the type of humility we should develop. So in this way, it's described that this verse, this prayer, this opening prayer of offering our respects to the Guru, it says, the Guru opens my eyes with the torch of knowledge. Now, when we take Diksha, or even when we don't, when we come to Krishna consciousness, when we're given a torch of knowledge, generally the conception is, I can speak for myself, but I'm sure other devotees can relate. When we're given the torch of knowledge, we think we'll have no obstacles, or at least less obstacles. But that's not true. So there's a nice analogy in this regard, and if anyone comes to any Sunday feast, they'll know that you'll see children running around all the time. And what are they running around? Obstacles. And what are those obstacles? Chairs, tables, whatever. But how are they able to avoid those obstacles? Because the light is on. If the light was turned off, those same obstacles, which are not really considered obstacles, they'll turn into weapons that could injure them. So in this way, we could understand that both materialists and spiritualists, they all have obstacles. But because devotees have the torch of knowledge, they're able to avoid those obstacles. And there's a couple of other stories I'll tell in this regard. There was one devotee who lived here many years ago. His name is Bhakta Greg Prabhu. So Bhakta Greg Prabhu, he's a really nice devotee. And if anyone out in YouTube land or here knows where he is, please contact me, because he was a very nice devotee. But like all of us, we went through some difficulties, and I tried to contact him, but nobody knows where he is. But anyway, he was a handyman like Jitendra Prabhu, and so one day while he was standing in the temple, he worked in a hardware store nearby, and this is what he told me. This is what he told other devotees, that for whatever reason he was in every hardware store, they have a division where they cut glass only. They cut glass only. And sharp glass. And so when he was in this part of the store, whether he was working there or just went there for any particular reason, it's described that he says when he was leaving the store, somebody approached him. And he says, Greg, what happened? What happened to you? And he says, what do you mean what happened to me? He says, look at the back of your clothes. He says the back of his clothes, all the back of his clothes were all cut up from the glass, and he didn't even know about it. He was completely unaware of it. And so I've had this experience when I was lifting a huge glass window with Jitendra Prabhu. Somebody came out to me. They said, you're bleeding. I says, I'm not bleeding. I would have felt it. Then I looked at my hand. I was bleeding. You don't even feel glass when it cuts you. So that was the last time I helped Jitendra with glass. So the moral of the story is that Tate anukampam susamicha mano bunjana eva makritam vipakam hriva babubir vidadan namaste jiveta yomuti pade sadayaba. This verse from Lord Brahma from the Bhagavatam, it says when we come to Krishna consciousness, we only get a minute portion of our sinful activities. So Greg, because he had the light of knowledge on and the light was on, he would have been injured much worse. And this is the nature of becoming a devotee. When you have the light of knowledge, you could avoid those obstacles. And even with Krishna, when he gives us some sinful reaction, it's far less than what we will receive when we become a devotee. And so there's many things I could say in this regard, but I'd like to move on to the pastime of Keshava Mary, who tried to be the best. And so long story short, there was a proud scholar named Keshava Kashmiri, and he was a worshiper of Saraswati, the goddess of learning. And so Saraswati gave him the benediction that nobody could defeat you in a debate. And so naturally, if nobody could defeat you in a debate, you're going to walk around, like like all that in a bag of chips. So in this way, he will defeat all the scholars wherever he went. So one day he heard that there was a prodigy, and this prodigy name was Nimai Pandit. Who was, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he was, that was his name in his youth, Nimai Pandit, because he was known as a great Pandit, a great learned person, because even at 16, he had his own school of learning. And he was also known as a great debater as well. So Keshava Kashmiri, he says, yes, let me go debate this Nimai Pandit and just write him off my list as another person I could defeat. So one day he approached Nimai Pandit or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he says, let's debate. So they were on the bank of the Ganges River. So it's described that to start the debate off, he composed 100 spontaneous verses glorifying Mother Ganges since they were on the bank of the Ganges River. And so to rebuttal, the Lord not only repeated all the verses back to Keshava Kashmiri verbatim, word for word, but he told them all the faults in it. So in this way, Keshava Kashmiri, he was very surprised. He was like, now most of us, including myself, we struggle to even pronounce the verses, with to speak of memorizing them. There's so many verses to memorize. And so he couldn't understand, how is it possible that this teenager could remember all of my spontaneous verses, and not only that, find out the faults. And so he tried to rebuttal back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So it's described that he was speechless. Why? Because the Lord told Saraswati to cut off his internet, not internet, but his internet. Why? Because he was very proud. Just like if you don't pay your light bill, your internet bill, what happens? It gets cut off. So because he didn't pay the price of being humble, humility, the austerity of being humble, then he was temporarily disconnected from the Lord. And so in that way, he had a dream that night. And Saraswati appeared in his dream. And he says, Saraswati, what happened? What's up? And so she said, actually, that teenager was my boss. That was the Supreme Lord. And he told me not to inspire you. Why? Because he wanted to teach you this lesson. And what is that lesson? If we try our best, then God will help us. If we try to be the best, then God will humble us. And so the one thing I really love about this pastime is that this pastime is also described in the Chaitanya Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And both of this particular lesson I'm about to describe is described in both. Some of the aspects aren't described in both, but this particular part is. So when the Lord defeated Keshava Kashmiri, all of the Lord's students who were surrounding the debate, all of the Lord's students started to laugh and point at Keshava Kashmiri. So the Lord, he said something very interesting. Because naturally when somebody disrespects us, like the Kesava Keshmiri approach is described, he approached the Lord with such arrogance, with such disrespect. So when somebody disrespects us, the natural tendency is that when they have some calamity, some financial calamity, some physical calamity, you know, we may not say it, but we smile within our heart. Oh, I'm so sorry, Prabhu. So in this way, the Lord's students, they were also happy when he had a calamity. And what was this calamity? His ego was bursted. He was humiliated. But the Lord told his students, he says, do not laugh at him. I'm trying to humble him, not humiliate him. And so this is the lesson we can take in our Christian consciousness. We should offer respect to others and not expect respect in return. And so the Lord specifically taught this in his pastime, that we should never want people to leave Krishna consciousness, because when you leave Krishna consciousness, everything is miserable. So this is one lesson we could take. There's a few more points. And may I regard you? I prepared for this class this morning. Why? Because for right now, I'm the new pot washer. And the good thing about washing pots every day, practically all day, is that you don't have any desires. Like, I don't have any lust. Why? The only desire I have is to sleep. So, Acharya Nishi, if you want to remain a brahmachari, wash a lot of pots. You'll have no other desire than to sleep. So I think I think sometimes Krishna doesn't want us to be prepared so much so we can rely on him more than our preparation, our own knowledge. So forgive me for not doing too well, but the main thing is, the reason I accepted this service is, one, as an expression of my gratitude to all the teachers who have helped me come out of my own depression, and also because I'm trying my best, and that's the main thing. That's the theme of this class, is to offer respect to everyone, especially those who try their best. And so now when we talk about respect also, even amongst a society of devotees, because as previously mentioned, generally people offer respect to people who have money, fame, power, etc. But even we could do this same duplicitous respect even among devotees if we need to get something from devotees. And so Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he says, he wrote an article called Sri Guru Tattva and Seva. He says real humility is not an external show of humility, which is actually mere duplicity. So obviously, real humility is internal. Anyone can show you respect on the outside, but the real testament of humility is how we respect others on the inside. And so there's a nice story in this regard, how this spark of bad qualities like duplicity can get us in a lot of trouble. So there's a nice story in this regard. Once upon a time, a fire chief named Mr. Jones wanted to have a positive influence on the people in his community, especially the youth. So every weekend, he would invite high school students to his fire station. And next to this fire station, every weekend, he will always build a small temporary wooden house, a very small temporary wooden house. And inside this house, the only furniture was a carpet on the floor. So one day, Mr. Jones invited a group of high school students into this house with the carpet. And so then he lit a match with fire. And so he threw the match on the carpet. And so then he asked the students, "Are we dead yet?" So in confusion, the students looked at each other. They said, "No." So then Mr. Jones, he said, "But we will be." So in this way, Mr. Jones then escorted the students outside the house. And within less than a few minutes, the entire house was engulfed in flames. So then he told the students, the moral of the story is, just as a spark is a minor problem, but becomes a major problem if we don't extinguish it, so negative thoughts are a minor problem, but become a major problem if we don't extinguish them. Unless we extinguish the thoughts of pride, envy, and vengeance, then with the water of humility, appreciation, and forgiveness, then it'll cause problems for us and potentially for others. So that's a lesson in every story we hear, is how we could develop these good qualities. So there's a nice story in this regard where the spark of duplicity got somebody in trouble. So this pastime appears in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. Let's see what chapter. I wrote it down, so if anyone wants to review it. So this pastime is regarding Haridas Thakur and the envious Brahmana. It's not the same as Ramachandra Khan. This story actually appears in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adi Leela, chapter 16, verses 198 through 229. So long story short, once upon a time there was a snake charmer, and he was in the marketplace. So this snake charmer, he started to enact some of the pastimes of the Lord, and started to dance in love of God, etc. And so it's described that Haridas Thakur, he appeared on the scene. And when Haridas Thakur saw this snake charmer dancing in love of God, he became so inspired that he also started to dance in love of God. And so the snake charmer, he can understand that, yes, Haridas Thakur, glories are spread everywhere. He can understand that this is a great Vaishnava. So in this marketplace, the snake charmer, he stopped enacting the pastimes of the Lord. He stood on a wall next to all the marketplace people, and he just appreciated. He was neither envious. He was appreciating Haridas Thakur's devotion to the Lord. So in this way, Haridas Thakur just started to dance in complete love of God and ecstasy. Now it's described that an envious Brahmana, he was also watching Haridas Thakur from a distance, and he was thinking, he had the spark of duplicity, the spark of envy, the spark of this greed. And he was thinking, it's described that he was thinking, who is this barbarian fool named Haridas Thakur? All these naive religionists, they're simply praising him and giving him dakshina, some donations. If I do the same thing, I will also be praised, and I will also get the money, the donations. So this is precisely what he did. So when Haridas Thakur, after he finished dancing in love of God, he left the scene in the marketplace. And this envious Brahmana, he imitated Haridas Thakur. He did the exact same thing. And he got the result that he wanted. All the marketplace people started to glorify him and give him some dakshina, some donations as well. And in this way, he was happy, not from spiritual wealth, but from the material wealth. Now, it's described that the snake charmer, when he saw this envious Brahmana started to dance for some time, then he walked up to him. And guess what happened? Can you guess? He started to beat him. He started to beat him down. And this is described that this envious Brahmana, he ran in complete pain. He fled from the scene of the marketplace. So all the marketplace people, they were confused. They asked the snake charmer. They says, my dear snake charmer, Haridas Thakur and this Brahmana, they were doing the exact same thing. So why did you glorify Haridas Thakur and condemn the Brahmana? So in this pastime, it's described that the snake charmer didn't actually beat him. Who was he beat by? Well, the verse says he was beat by Nagaraj. The snake charmer was empowered by Nagaraj, the king of serpents. And Bhaktisiddhanta says the king of serpents can refer to either Vasuki or Anantashesha, Baladeva, the incarnation of Baladeva. So it was actually the Supreme Lord who was beating this envious Brahmana. Why? Because the Supreme Lord, unlike conditioned souls, he could see within the heart of everyone, so he could judge people properly. Sometimes we misjudge people. Why? Because we cannot see in their heart. So it's described that Anantashesha, through this snake charmer, he told the marketplace people, he says, Haridas Thakur, he practices tender love. The envious Brahmana, he practices pretender love. That's the difference. And so in this way, it's described that if we have this tender love for the Supreme Lord and for other devotees, then the Lord will empower us with tolerance. But if we don't have this, if we have this pretender love, then the Lord won't give us this tolerance. It's very simple. That is it possible for somebody to be beat in 22 marketplaces? Is it possible for somebody to be stabbed, to be cut on without feeling any pain? Yes and no. No without anesthesia. Yes with anesthesia. So we can see that Haridas Thakur, he was beat in 22 marketplaces by numerous men, but he did not feel the pain. Why? Because he had tender love. The Lord empowered him with this tolerance. In much the same way, if you need surgery in a hospital, the doctors empower you with this anesthesia where you don't feel any pain. But if you don't have this tender love, if you have pretender love, then let's say you get a paper cut. You can't even tolerate a paper cut if you don't have this painkiller, this anesthesia. So we see this, if we contrast the story of Haridas Thakur with this envious Brahmana, Haridas Thakur was beat in 22 marketplaces by numerous men, but he still tolerated it. This envious Brahmana was beat in one marketplace by one person, and he could not tolerate it. And so therefore, this is a lesson we could take in our life. Especially, I'll use Haridas Thakur and Prahlad Maharaj, Jesus Christ. We see they tolerated so many things without complaining. They even offered respect and gratitude and well wishes to their enemies, their so-called enemies. And so therefore, there's a nice, like we could give the example of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was crucified, and he could still forgive. We're only crucified by words, and we still cannot forgive. Therefore, the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Leela, chapter 14, verse 1, it says, for one who remembers the lotus feet of Lord Chaitanya, then even difficult things become easy to perform. But for one who does not remember the lotus feet of the Lord, then even easy things become difficult to perform. And so this is a very vivid example of this, that Haridas Thakur, because he always remembered the Lord, Mamana Baba Ma Bato Ma Yaji Mam Namaskuru, because he always remembered the Lord as prescribed by Krishna throughout the Gita, that the Lord empowered him. He was connected to the Lord. Because he was connected to the Lord by trying his best, he was empowered with this tolerance. And so the opposite, we could pretend to remember the Lord, but what was the Brahmin? This is a very vivid example that we should take in mind. We could pretend to remember the Lord, but what are we remembering? This is an example that this envious Brahmin, what was he remembering? He was remembering na danam na janam na sundaram, danam janam sundaram. What was he memorizing? What was the object of his meditation? Money, fame, and probably women. And because he pretended to remember the Lord and didn't actually remember the Lord didn't empower him with this tolerance. So this is a very powerful lesson for us, is that this is a criteria we could judge for our own consciousness. If we have no tolerance, if we cannot tolerate even the smallest provocation, then we should see how sincere we are, how duplicitous we are. What are we thinking about? Are we duplicitous devotee? Are we thinking negative thoughts about them? Then okay, that's your choice, that's our choice, and then we could expect ourselves to be in a lot more drama, a lot more drama, instead of being devoted to Rama. We could be devoted to Rama or drama. And so there's a nice book by His Holiness. So this is, maybe I'll wrap it up. This is the last point I'll mention. There's a book by His Holiness Srila Guru Govinda Maharaj, Srila Guru Govinda Swami Maharaj. The book is called Srinad Api Suni Chena, Lower Than a Straw in the Street. And so this is a book actually composed by his disciples. It's some excerpts from his lectures about this particular verse of Lord Chaitanya's, be more humble than a blade of grass, or lower than a straw in the street. So in chapter 3 of his book, Srinad Api Suni Chena, Lower Than a Straw in the Street, His Holiness Guru Govinda Maharaj, he says something very strong. Maybe I think we probably could relate to it in our own life with this duplicity we have sometimes with devotees. He says, very few Vaishnavas are actually speaking Krishna Katha. What is everyone else speaking? They're speaking on Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, superficial religion, like this envious Brahmana. Dharma, Artha, wealth, and Kama, sense gratification. Sense gratification doesn't mean just lust. It could also mean prestige. So this Brahmana, he's a vivid example of somebody who pretended to be a Vaishnava. And so in this way, so Govinda Maharaj, he says very few Vaishnavas are speaking Ashura Krishna Katha. What is everyone else speaking? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Rarely do people see the significance or the point of Krishna Prema. And so we see, and he says, what's the result of not properly speaking Krishna Katha? This is what he says: you cannot tolerate even the slightest provocation. And so we see this vivid example. This theme appears throughout the Bhagavatam time and time again. Prahlad, he could tolerate being thrown off the mountain, being put in fire, and so many difficulties, and he still offered respect to his father. Hiranyakashipu, he could not tolerate that Prahlad disagreed with him. He says, my dear father, I disagree that you're God. Krishna's God, not you. We'll have to agree to disagree. And Hiranyakashipu, he could not tolerate it. Same with Durvasa Muni. It's described, without going into details of the pastime, Durvasa Muni, he's a vivid example of somebody who performs the right thing for the wrong reason. He was envious of Ambarish. He was thinking, I'm a wise man, I have saffron, I'm a vegetarian, I'm celibate, but why are people going to Ambarish Maharaj for wisdom? They should be coming to me. And so in this way, he found an excuse to enact this envy. There was some debate, without going into the story. He wanted to kill Ambarish Maharaj when Ambarish just drank a sip of water. So it's described that you should serve your guests food and water first before you take a drink. So Ambarish, he had to break a fast, and so he decided, let me just take a sip of water to break my fast. And in this way, Durvasa Muni was ready to kill him for taking a sip of water. So where's the tolerance? He had no tolerance. Why? Because he did the right thing for the wrong reason. But look at Ambarish Maharaj. Durvasa Muni created a giant fire demon from his hair. And this giant fire demon was going to kill Ambarish. And it's described that Ambarish, he didn't even flinch. When somebody's approaching you, you're like this, walking towards you. He didn't even flinch. He was about to be incinerated to death. So why was he, how is it possible that Ambarish tolerated it? Because he was connected to Krishna. Savaimana Krishna pada ada vendayor vachanti vaikunta gunana vanane. Paramakaruna Prabhu, you probably know the whole sequence of verses probably, right? Paramakaruna is chanting the whole sequence of verses. Here's Paramakaruna Prabhu, our book distributor. He quoted the whole sequence of verses. Now, why? Because he's empowered by Krishna. Now, if you're empowered by Krishna, that means you can't compete with anyone. So I only know the first line in that verse. But that's the thing. If we could do everything well, that means we wouldn't have to appreciate anyone. We would be God. So it's good that people could do better things and like recite shlokas. And also, he's like a human encyclopedia. If you want to know any verse, you could get it from him. So we're meant to take help from each other. So in this way, as Govinda Maharaj, he was mentioning that this is the indication, the criteria. If we have this pretender love, if we're duplicitous, then we cannot tolerate, we cannot go to sleep. We're always meditating on how to get revenge, how to slander those who mistreated us. So my last point is this. How did Srila Govinda Maharaj come to Krishna consciousness? It's very simple. In 1975, ISKCON was a world powerhouse. They had money, they had books, they had resources. It was a world powerhouse as opposed to in their beginning days in 1966. So His Holiness Govinda Maharaj, Swami Maharaj, he came to Krishna consciousness in 1975. He met Prabhupada in 1975. And when he met Prabhupada, within less than 2 months, Prabhupada gave him Harinam initiation, he gave him Brahmana initiation, and then he gave him Sannyas initiation. So within less than 2 months. And so Prabhupada, after he gave him his full, complete initiation, he told Govinda Maharaj, go start a temple in Bhubaneswar, India. And Govinda Maharaj, he says, absolutely, Prabhu, I would love to start a temple in Bhubaneswar where there was a jungle. Nobody wanted to go there because it was all jungle. It was in a remote area. He even camped out there. He took one servant with him. The servant was like, you know, this is India where they have probably snakes and tigers, especially in the jungle. But Govinda Maharaj, he was so humble. He was so tolerant. Why? Because he was connected to the Lord, connected to his guru. With sincerity, he can tolerate living in the jungle. Now, I'll speak for myself. I cannot even tolerate a fly or a mosquito. I hate camping. I hate going out, so that's not me. But I appreciate devotees who could do that. So in this way, Prabhupada told them, start a ISKCON temple in Bhubaneswar. And so Govinda Maharaj, he says, yes, Prabhupada, I would love to. But I need some money. I need some resources. I need some manpower. And I need some books. So Prabhupada says, no. And this is interesting. Like, he's like, wow, you're a world. No, he didn't say that. This is what we would say. Wow, you're a world powerhouse. You have all the money, all the resources, all the books, all the manpower. You can't throw me a bone? But Govinda Maharaj, he grew up in a Vaishnava family his whole life. He can understand the lesson Prabhupada was trying to teach him. And what was that lesson? Prabhupada said, when I came to America, I had to do the same thing. I didn't have any money, any resources. So what's the lesson? The lesson is that when we have to start some institution from the ground up, what happens? What's the main quality we develop? Gratitude. Anyone who wants to help you, you're like, thank you, thank you. It doesn't matter. You don't have any discrimination. Or like a nightclub. Oh, you could come in, you can't. You could come in, you can't. Move out the way. And so that's the tendency. When we inherit some institution, that's the tendency. You haven't gone through the austerities, the difficulties. Just like a seed cannot germinate in the light. It can only germinate by being buried in the ground, in the austerities, in the darkness. In much the same way, we cannot grow in the spotlight when things are just given to us. Only when we voluntarily or involuntarily with gratitude, accept that humility, that austerity, then can we develop this humility, this gratitude. So Govinda Maharaj, just like Prabhupada, anyone who would come to help him, he would be so grateful. And this is precisely what Prabhupada did. Prabhupada wanted to bring the Brahmanas from India, but they wouldn't help him. So what did Prabhupada do? He didn't say, oh, you guys are hippies, you had illicit sex, you bought all the four principles, you can't help me. No, he was so grateful. So in this way, that's our own choice. As much, this is our choice. So to the degree we voluntarily accept this austerity by offering gratitude to everyone, offering obeisances, namaha, respects to everyone, then to that degree, it will lead to our elevation. But to the degree we don't, we can see throughout history, it will lead to our degradation. So anyways, this is our topic for today. I think we only have maybe 30 seconds. Anyone wants to comment on anything? So forgive me, I didn't prepare, like I told you, I prepared for this class maybe like an hour before the class, so please forgive me for going a little bit long. But I think we have 3 minutes left. Jai, would you like to share something? Or? Well, can you get the mic so everyone else could hear?
From Vaisheshika Prabhu, and Vaisheshika Prabhu was saying a very important point that you can fake anything in the world, but you can't fake consistency. So gratitude and consistency is two important things in Krishna. That's what I feel that.
Yeah.
And every day when we wake up and when we finish our day, there is one more day to feel gratitude to Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. That thank you for allowing me to serve you. Thank you you don't need my service. I have no qualifications. I have a lot of faults.
Yeah.
I'm criticizing devotees. I'm finding faults in devotees, but still you're allowing me to do service. Thank you so much. Hope I can serve you better tomorrow. And that's very important. Thanks, Prabhu.
Thank you. That's a very powerful point because every day is an opportunity to offer gratitude to others without motivation. It's described that Hiranyakashipu, 99.9% of the universe worship Haridasa Kaur. Only one person or a few people didn't, Prahlad and his classmate. So that's a lesson we could take. We can have 99% of things going right in our life, but 1% goes wrong. And that's enough to take away 100% of our happiness. Why? Ingratitude. And so we can see that a white wall with one black spot, we do not notice any of the white, only the black. Why? Because of ingratitude. So therefore, we're meant to associate with devotees to develop this intelligence, to get some common sense. So we have the common sense to offer gratitude that Krishna's given me so many things. Why am I letting one insult, one thing that doesn't go my way to take away all of my happiness and therefore to start complaining and condemn devotees? So anyway, that's our class before our RT takes place. Thank you, everyone. So please forgive me for all of my offenses. I try my best. That's the main thing. It's more like a disclaimer for this class. I try my best. So thank you for everyone for tolerating me. I appreciate it. And Srila Prabhupada Ki Jaya.